It's an intense talk, isn't it? So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about something a little bit more soothing. I want to talk about amore, love. Well, really, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence, but one of the things about AI that I find so deeply fascinating is that when we talk about AI, one of the things that happens is that we face our own humanity. Right? If we can build a machine that is as smart as a human being, what does that mean for being a human being? And love is one of those kind of innate traits of human beings that makes us human. Whether it's love for a partner or a friend or your children, it's one of the core things about being human. Also, one of the most interesting ways to look at the future is to look at science fiction. And if you look at science fiction movies, a lot of them actually end up being about artificial intelligence and love, those who are not about the destruction of the world. And artificial intelligence and love, let's take a couple of examples. The movie Her, for those of you who have seen it. Theodore falls in love with his artificially intelligent operating system, right? It's all about love. How do you connect with a machine? Now, it's a little far-fetched perhaps, but I have a couple of friends that are very, very single, and especially one of them, every night before he goes to sleep, he has this little Apple Pod, and he's like, "Hey Siri, good night, sweetie," and she says, "Good night," and he goes to bed. So yes, the scenario of Her is far-fetched, but we're already seeing some little tiny pieces of it. In the movie Ex Machina, making the main character of the movie, like the AI making him fall in love with her, is essentially a novel way of the Turing test, right? If she can make him fall in love with her, she's actually, let's call it, sentient. A third example is from the series Black Mirror, where, and the episode is called Hang the DJ, where an AI or a simulation system is looking at how well compatible are two human beings. And this episode is taking things to the extreme. However, we're already using AI for our dating lives. Like all of the dating apps are basing their matching algorithms, or most of them, on machine learning and AI. So it's not that far-fetched to talk about AI and love. However, I want to pull this a little bit from the science fiction sphere and the superintelligence down to today. And the reason why artificial intelligence is being talked about everywhere by everyone, like Jeff said earlier, 2017 was the year of AI, 2018 was, we'll continue on that for a while. The reason why this is happening is, of course, access to computational power and access to data. And I want to make clear kind of three concepts, and I'm sure you've heard of these before and sort of know it. One thing is artificial superintelligence, or this idea that one AI system is as smart as every single human being on Earth combined. When we get there, we don't quite know what's going to happen, but it's far into the future. Artificial general intelligence is the idea that one human being and one machine is as smart as one human being. We are not there yet, and we still have a lot of things to discover and a lot of things to understand, and I'll get back to that. So what we're talking about when we're talking about AI today, as in, having an applied AI strategy for your company, it's really artificial narrow intelligence, an AI that can do one thing and one thing only. And it does that really well, whether it's a chat bot or a customer service representative bot on the phone. But if you call your bank and there's this automated system that says, what are you looking for? What do you need? And you say it out with your voice, and it directs you to the right person. If you ask that one, what's the weather today? Or, what time is it? Or what's for dinner? It doesn't actually know how to answer because it does one thing and one thing only. And AI, software, right? Hardware, software, data. It's really just software. So what's the difference between regular software and machine learning or AI software? The simplest way, explain it to me like I was 5, is that regular software, it works much like a calculator. You put in A plus B, and you get C. 1 plus 2 is 3, every single time. But with machine learning or AI software, you give it A plus B, and you get C the first time. But depending on the data, depending on the experience of that machine, the answer might change over time the more the machine learns. And that's the basic simplified difference. And as of 2018, artificial intelligence is an old term. It was coined in 1956, and it's a very broad umbrella term. Underneath it right now today is the term machine learning, right? Which you all heard. And a lot today, we talk about AI/ML. It's pretty much synonymous. It's another big umbrella term, capturing a lot of different technology, but it's really kind of same today. And when we talk about machine learning, we're really talking about neural networks. That's where most of the things are happening today. There are other ways to go about it too, but it's pretty much synonymous. And when we talk about neural networks, really we're talking about deep learning, where something like half of all R&D and development money is going today, where we see the biggest breakthroughs. So this is today. These kind of 4 are very synonymous, but that is not the way it's going to be moving forward. And also, just to be clear, neural networks were discovered in 1958 or so. Obviously, a lot has happened since. Deep learning, 1986. But again, it wasn't until the last handful of years we actually had computational power and data so that 2 kids in a garage can go apply a deep learning algorithm on a data set, where in 1986, you had to be a professor at a university with access to a supercomputer. And so this idea of I'm going to briefly explain what a neural network is, because there is an idea that we're shaping these machines, both hardware and software, more like a human brain. Now there's a couple of things that are important. Like, we don't actually know how a human brain works. So saying that we shape our machines after the human brain is kind of like, we take what we think the human brain does, and the little we know about it, and we kind of try to shape our AI software and hardware after that. So it's really exaggerating, but it serves a purpose, right? It's for the image of it. And so much in a way where the way our brain works, you have neurons and you have synapses, sending signals between the neurons. Much so also works today's AI systems or neural networks. And I'm going to take a and if there's any kind of master's, PhD level machine learning experts in the room, I apologize. It's a very simplified example, so we get everyone up to speed. Let's say I own a tiny little pizzeria here in Milano. And every morning I have to get up. I don't actually know much about pizza making, but I'm going to assume this. Every morning I get up, and I make the dough for the pizzas for the day. The question is, how much dough do I make, right? If I've been running this pizzeria for 30 years, I probably have a pretty good gut feeling, right? Okay, so today's Tuesday. The weather's not too bad. We're kind of outside tourist season, so I'm going to make X amount of dough. But let's say I just opened my pizzeria, and I have no idea, right? And these are the scenarios where there's a lot of different data, there's a lot of different, knowledge and information, and here is where a neural network could work. And again, it's a simplified example. So first you have a couple of pieces of input data. So let's say I get my hands on a data set that talks about, I have a sales report from a competitor. I, used some of the Jaya's, techniques and hackings earlier, and I hacked my way in. I have a data set. Obviously, you don't want to do that, but I have a data set of sales figures for a local pizzeria for the past 4 months. I also have weather reports for the last 4 months. Let's do those 2 data sets. So I know how much was sold, and I know what the weather was for each day of the week. So what you do is you send that as the 2 kind of pink here input data, and we send that into a hidden layer of neuron or computational units. And each of those, and that is computed, and then on the output, I get a suggestion. Today you're going to make a kilo of dough, enough for X number of pizzas. And so that's a very simple thing. Now, the tricky part of where you train your network and where you improve this model is that you give different weights. So the lines that go into the layers, you give them different weights. Is it more important that it's Tuesday? Or is it more important that we're outside of tourist season, for example? Or is it more important what weather is like? And so that is kind of how you weigh and measure and set up and tune your network to get the right output. And then you connect this to your daily sales figures, to the weather reports, to sporting event calendars, to whatever data that you have access to. And over time, the system will learn to make more and more accurate predictions on how much pizza dough to make in the morning. It's a simplified example, but that's the basic function. And again, AI, it's all about the hardware, right? A combination of that, and the software, the algorithms, the actual code, and the data you have. But there's a lot of things we really don't know yet, and where very few people are close to breaking, in kind of terms of research, breaking through. One of the things, for example, is, okay, I can feed this data, of the pizza dough example, I can feed that, and I can set up a hardware, software infrastructure with these algorithms, and I feed it that. But what if I fed it pictures of cats, or pictures of cars, or data on an oil well? It's not going to understand that data, right? I have to train it, I have to teach it, I have to rewrite some of the code. But if we can make AI that can take any piece of data, whatever the data is, and learn from it, that's going to be a major breakthrough. We are not there yet, and there's a lot of fundamental understanding of maths and physics that needs to happen for that to come through. Also, we talk about big data a lot, right? Everyone knows the term big data. But what about tiny data, right? So one of the kind of classical examples of image recognition is recognizing that a cat is a cat. So for those of you who have kids, let's say you have a 2 or 3 year old. How many cats does she have to see before she goes, meow, that's a cat. She knows that's a cat. Maybe she needs to see 5 cats, maybe 6 before she knows the difference between a cat and a dog. But a deep learning network has to see millions of cat images, which is fine. There's a lot of cat images online, it's fine. But when it comes to other kinds of data, we don't have that much data. So in order to build AI systems that are really helpful also in those cases, again, there's a lot of fundamental math that needs to get in place. We're talking kind of our basic understanding of the world that is simply not there yet. And so actually AI systems today are better at recognizing that cats are cats than human beings are, which I find it quite fascinating. It's about a 3% error margin in AIs and about 5% in humans. So they're better than us there. Again, narrow AI. So we do have a lot that needs to happen over the next, say, 20, 25 years before we're approaching this more general intelligence. But that doesn't mean things aren't moving really, really, really fast today in the field of narrow intelligence. And it's kind of hard to show kind of code and kind of data and numbers. So I want to show you robots. Also, I love robot videos, almost as much as cat videos. And I want to show you this. This is from DARPA, the Robotics Challenge in 2015. And the challenge here is sending these robots through this kind of maze that's supposed to be kind of an emergency disaster situation. You send these robots in, and they're going to kind of navigate their way through the course. And it's not quite as good as one would hope. The interesting part, this is my favorite. The interesting part about the 2015 DARPA challenge is the following. After this competition, DARPA announced, and they've run that competition for a number of years. After this competition, DARPA announced, we're done. We're good, we succeeded. Because a variety of the robots, as opposed to previous years, actually made it through the course at the end. It was slow, it was excruciating with a lot of errors, but they made it through, which means we've made it. Now we're just talking doubling in hardware and doubling in software and some more efficient batteries and smaller size, and we're there. Right? So they've proven that it could be done, and then they've reshifted the focus of the challenge. Now, this is 2015. We're now in 2018. And I'm sure you've seen some of Boston Dynamics videos already, but I want to show you this one because it's kind of a similar robot. And this is Atlas. And pretty much I give this talk an example, I have to kind of update the video because they keep coming out with new videos and new examples. And so this is Atlas. And this last part here is where I found it most fascinating. And with a little kind of humanoid, yes, I did it. And so this is moving really, really fast. And of course, the brain of the robot is where the artificial intelligence component of it is. So things are moving really, really fast. And Massimo is going to get on stage afterwards. And he's going to talk a little bit more about kind of the business, aspects of it. So I'm not going to get too much into numbers and details on it. But being a business owner or manager in 2018, question might be what areas of our business or the business world will change due to AI. We'll get more into it in his talk, but the simple answer is all of them. And so if you sit here right now and you're like, oh no, but like my dad did when I started talking about AI, he's like, well, I'm a lawyer. We're always gonna need lawyers. I'm like, sure, maybe, but fact is that legal assistants that can do, are being built right now, like Ross is one example, that can do a lot of the grunt work. Now the grunt work, the nitty-gritty sitting and reading documents to find that one paragraph and find that one, example, that is today done by junior lawyers as they enter a business. And if all of that is done by machines like that, way faster than a junior lawyer, how are you going to learn to become a senior lawyer? So even if we're still going to need senior lawyers for another couple of decades, how do you become a senior lawyer? The entire business of being owning and operating a legal firm is changing over the next few years. So even if some part and core is still going to be there, your business will radically change. So if anyone here is like, oh, well, my business, you're just not looking close enough. All right. So, question is, where do we start? Right? Sorry about that, I'm getting over a cold. Where do we start? Okay, you're running a company or you're a head of a department and you're like, where do I begin? Basic kind of innovation 101. What part of your organization has the most tedious manual process? What problem is that part of your business solving? Who are they solving it for? What data do you need to answer those questions? And what answers do you actually want, right? It's easy to collect a lot of data, but what answers do you actually need from the data? And when you know that, you can actually start answering, what do you need with what can you do with existing machine learning algorithms? And what do you actually need heavy R&D for? Or building new mathematical understanding of the world. And once you know that, then you have to get the right talent. Now, it is tricky to get, deeply skilled AI talent, but there's a lot of programs out there. S2D is from Vigo is just one example of mathematically skilled people who have a fundamental understanding of the world that can, do R&D research for you, or of course, you can get, people from university programs, etc. But you can also train your own talent when it comes to just applying more basic machine learning. There's plenty of courses on Coursera, Kaggle, and NVIDIA also offer courses, and you can bring in your own talent and retrain them. And my company is a small startup with 16 employees, which the tech team is 9, and we already send our developers on a variety of courses to make sure they're staying up to date and learn the frameworks they need to learn. And then finally, you can also start with the open libraries. There's a lot of resources out there, like TensorFlow, Theano, Scikit. They're open source, they're available for commercial use. There's no point in reinventing the wheel here. And I also want to mention when we talk about it that convergence is really important to keep in mind when you're building your AI strategy, that it's not just about artificial intelligence, it is about the variety of different technologies that it's going to intersect with. So anything from 3D manufacturing, robotics, VR, blockchain, whatever it is, it's going to have an intersection with AI. Give me 1 second. That's better. All right. I want to touch a little bit, and I know Massimo, again, will cover some of this, but there's some really tricky questions when it comes to AI. A lot of it related to cybersecurity, but we've already covered that pretty much in detail, so I'm not going to go there. But fact is that our human brains are incredibly flawed. This is an overview over all of the biases of a human brain. Like, we have an incredibly biased machine up here. And fact is that when we build algorithms, machine learning and AI algorithms, based on our human brains, or from our own human brains, we're going to build our own bias in it. And we're going to get examples like this, where a Florida police department built an algorithm to essentially measure whether someone was likely to be a repeat offender. Turns out they build a racist algorithms. Because the judges are already fairly racist, so you just take those biases and you replicate it in a machine, right? And AI is no better than the biases of the humans who designed it. Google has an algorithm that shows job ads, executive job ads, so executive job ads, 1,800 times to men and 600 times to women. Why? Well, because that's how the world looks like. And it is statistically true. That doesn't mean it's the future we want to build, right? If we do these predictive solutions based on the past, the future is going to be just as bad as the past. So we need to take that into consideration. The job landscape is also changing. I'm not going to go into that. Massimo will cover that a lot more. And both when we talk about cybersecurity and in general, building AIs that can make a kill decision, autonomous weapons, is a really bad idea in general, full stop. So what we need for our businesses is also ethical frameworks, right? What are our ethics? How do we keep ourselves accountable for data bias, etc.? And there's a number of companies working on this as well. And again, Massimo will get a little bit more into detail on that. Fact is, we're kind of already living in a science fiction movie. Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate it. What is that? Thank you. Oh, that's really good. Thank you. So we're already living in a science fiction movie. And here are some of the things that I'm personally really, really excited about moving forward into the future. So we already talked about making that big choice, right? In dating, in love. But it's not just about love. It's really about making any big choices in your life. All right, let's take an example that usually brings up a lot of ethical questions. Elections, right? We see that choices we make during elections have massive impact on the world. Now, an election is a one-time thing. I go there, I put down one vote based on my mood in the moment, or a long period of reflection. The fact is that elections and my vote doesn't happen as a standalone thing, right? It's a culmination of a lot of opinions, a lot of thinking, a lot of different things. So what if I had a system that helped me make that choice, based on everything I've said, everything I've thought, right? A helpful tool to make me far better understand the implications of what I'm voting for. Just as one example, making these big choices are things where AIs can be incredibly helpful. But even so, things that are really, really mundane and boring, like Jeff Bezos is the richest man alive because he does these really boring things that no one else wants to do. And when it comes to logistics, for example, no matter industry, but all of the nitty-gritty details of moving things and people and data around, we have a massive opportunity for applying machine learning AI algorithms already today that will make us far more efficient. Chatbots is another area that I'm really sort of excited about, although I today find them really, really mundane and boring. Because today it's like, hey, bank, what's your opening hours, if there's a physical location anymore? How much is in my account? But what if you had a chatbot where it's like, hey, can I take my husband out to this really nice 3-star Michelin restaurant tonight? And the chatbot, the AI, will look at my bank account. It will look at my income history for the past 3 months. It will look at my car and say it's going to need a suspension change in the next year or so. You're saving up for your honeymoon. Maybe you should just go to that pizzeria and get something cheaper for now. So it's all personalized, right? And speaking of personalized, getting one tutor for every child, an AI that can follow your child from the early ages all the way, through graduation to know what your child learns, what it doesn't learn, how it learns best, and follow your child on a daily basis to make sure it gets the best and most personalized education possible. And it's not just children either, right? So how many here, like when you come home from work, you're like, today I'm gonna go exercise, or I'm gonna go for a walk, I'm gonna go for a jog, and you go down on the couch and you're like, oh, that's really nice. I don't wanna get up. What if you had an AI assistant that knew you better than you know yourself, that knew exactly what to say or do in that moment to get you off of your butt and out to the gym or a jog or a swim or whatever it is to make sure you prevent lifestyle diseases, which is actually really, really good for you. Of course, we're not going to get around talking about autonomous vehicles. 3,800 people die in traffic every day is entirely unnecessary, and we just need to get those cars on the road. Obviously, there is still quite a lot of development left, and we do want to be cautious about it, but it is coming, and it's coming at full force, and no matter what we do, it will all be personalized to us, localized to our region, all of these AI systems. So to wrap this up, the future can sometimes, especially in the context of superintelligence, of data security, of bias, it can seem a little overwhelming, right? How will this all affect me? Ginny Rometty has a quote that I really like, which is, some people call this artificial intelligence, but the reality is that this technology will enhance us. So we talk about human augmentation more so than artificial intelligence as a standalone thing. AI isn't necessarily going to be an exact replica of a human. It's going to be those tools we need to make ourselves better. And the future can seem a little chaotic, and especially sitting here for 2-3 days, you're gonna have your brains kind of exploded a little bit, and you're gonna go out and you're gonna be like, ooh, what just happened? And it's complex. But I believe that if we build AI systems that are not just modeled after the human brain, but also bring in the human heart and a little love and a lot of empathy, the future can be quite exciting and abundant. Thank you.